After Babur, the responsibility of Mughal Empire fell on the tender shoulders of 23-year-old Humayun. Although he was trained in the battlecraft and statecraft, assisting his father in several battles across the subcontinent, he was to face several challenges. The first and foremost being to defend and to sustain the Mughal Empire. Nasiruddin Muhammad Humayun has a special place in the history of early Mughals. Son of a powerful founder of the empire, Babur, and father of the greatest of Mughal emperors, Akbar, in between lies a man markedly different from both.
Humayun's difficulties arose partly from his legacy, which was based on an understanding that sovereignty can be parcelized and divided within the ruling family. Now that kind of a decentralizing political idea made Humayun's rule very difficult. There were also nobles, Central Asian nobles particularly, who tried to assert their rights.
Peace lover he was, comfort lover he was, but he was never going away from his troubles. And he is a very compassionate person. He is also a very emotional person in comparison to his son or his father.
A soft-spoken administrator who never had his penchant for art and architecture, which could be reflected in his mausoleum, the Humayun tomb.
Mughal imperial ideology and Mughal architecture are interlinked to each other. Some very fine historians of architecture of the Mughal period, Abakosh and others, have actually written a whole fat book on this topic, that how a big architectural enterprise on a grand scale are related to the Mughal projection of their power.
One of the major heritage sites in India today, the tomb glazed with perfection, finesse and beauty, which even inspired the design and layout of the wonder of the world, Taj Mahal.
This tomb is designed on a perfect style of, there's a concept in Quran, the garden of paradise or Parizad. So in this tomb you find that from all the corners, the channels, water channels are coming and it is going underneath the tomb, and then it is springing out from the other side.
Housing his grave, the splendid Humayun tomb was commissioned by his first wife, Bega Begum, popularly known as Hamida Banu, 13 years after his death in the year 1569.
We always give the example of Taj Mahal when it comes to prove the love. So the love of our husband, like Mumtaz Mahal's husband Shah Jahan, he built this Taj Mahal for his wife. But we often forget Humayun's tomb, which was built by a wife out of her sheer love for her husband.
Designed by Mirak Mirza Ghiaz, a Persian architect, Humayun tomb is the first ever garden tomb on the Indian subcontinent. The place housing those brilliant workmen still exists today, Arab Ki Sarai.
It is situated centrally in the Chahar Bagh, which was introduced in India by Babur. And then secondly, it is a tomb which is made for the family. Not only Humayun, first tomb which is made for the family. So in the middle you find the grave of Humayun, and on the 8th side, since it's an octagonal chamber, all the 8 sides you find his family members are also buried, like his wife and his. Second, in this tomb, for the first time we find chamfered angles. Chamfered angles are at the corner. So the square tomb is converted, it gives the impression of octagonal tomb. The third thing is that the dome of this building, or the Humayun's tomb, it's a double dome. Though double dome, for the first time we say that it was introduced by Lodhis, but the perfection of double dome, we find it here. In this tomb again you find the beautiful lattice work or the jali work. The jali work is again, it's a very Islamic feature.
Described as a superstitious man and an avid stargazer, he organized his court allocating departments as per elaborate astrological game.
They believed, as most people did, including rulers like our modern politicians, in astrology. And the interest in astronomy and astrology went together. And therefore the movement of stars were for them fateful, and they wanted to know what was auspicious for them and whether or not to begin a campaign or start building a city or a palace. So of course to that extent Humayun was superstitious, that he believed in astrology.
The major offices of his ministry were divided into 4 elements. The Earth Department looked after agriculture and architecture. Water Department looked into the administration of water bodies like masonries, canals and wine cellar. Fire Department was given charge of military matters. And Air Department was left for wardrobe, kitchen, stables and necessary management of mules and camels.
Well, there are 2 interesting sources for the history of Humayun as a ruler and as a person. One was written by Gulbadan Bano, who was Humayun's sister, Humayunama, because Akbar had commissioned the project of writing the history of India and his rule, and therefore that was some kind of an source material for that. And another very interesting little known book written by Humayun's personal valet, Johar Aftabchi, who traveled with him in exile also and went to Iran and came back. Johar Aftabchi's memoirs present a very intimate picture, devoid of any rhetorical and ornamental trapping which one usually finds in court chronicles.
This person called Nizam was promised to be the emperor for one day, and he was actually seated on the throne for one day, and this was not liked by Humayun's brother. And this has been recorded by Gulbadan Begum in her Humayunama, quoting Hindal or Kamran, either of them, possibly Mirza Hindal, to the effect that at this time when Sher Shah is chasing us, this person is doing trivial things like making us submit to pay obeisance to this water carrier, which was completely unnecessary. So this episodes like these would perhaps would show that in terms of the big empire and the image of that big empire, grandeur, magnificence, aura, the power, etc., that was actually eventually built under Akbar, that was somewhat lacking under Humayun.
3 years into his rule, in the year 1533, Humayun laid the foundation of new city, Din-i-Panah, on the historic site of Indraprastha, where Purana Kila still stands today.
See, this is a very old site of Purana. Purana Kila is a very, very old site. It actually goes back to the time of the Indraprastha of the Mahabharata fame. With some account 1500 BCE or maybe 850, 900 BCE. There have been habitations and fortifications in this area for a long period of time. This Purana Kila itself might have been a Rajput Tomar bastion in the 8th century onwards.
This site was the village, it was a village called Indrapet or Indraprastha. And Indraprastha reference we find in the story of Mahabharata when Kauravas and Pandavas were fighting. So Pandavas were given 5 villages by the Kauravas, and out of the 5 villages, Sonipat, Panipat, Bagpat and this Indraprastha was one of the village.
Beautifully designed gardens, high walls of citadel and structures bearing religious and cultural significance still stands today.
This is a site which is majorly also identified with Sher Shah. The mosque that we have seen here, Masjid-e-Qila-e-Kona, this is the mosque built by Sher Shah. Some historians of Mughal architecture will say that such a fine mosque could not have been built by an Afghan ruler. It must have been built by a Mughal ruler, which we know is not entirely true.
Sher Shah was, we find that he is a great admirer of Alauddin Khilji. So one element in Sher Shah's architecture we find is the sphere-headed fringes, which were introduced in India which is a Seljukian feature of architecture, which is introduced in India by Alauddin Khilji. So it's the keel arches, where on the introdos of the arch you find the keel or the sphere-headed fringes, which you find in the Qila'e-Kona mosque. Second thing, we find oriel windows. Oriel windows is also a contribution of Sher Shah on the architecture, which is an indigenous character, and also the drooping eaves and the serpentine struts, which Sher Shah has probably borrowed from Rajputana or from Gujarati architecture.
Built in 5 long years, Humayun's Din-i-Panah was a sprawling city packed with majestic corners and several beautified spaces. Now, we're also made to understand that this was a liberal center of the capital where poets and philosophers from several walks of life and several sects were invited. Now, that was striking in contrast from the bigotry and religious persecution practiced by the rulers in then Persia and Turkey. The historic fort also witnessed the watershed moment in the history of Mughals. Their defeat at the hands of Afghan Pathans led by Sher Shah Suri. The Humayun began to face challenges soon after taking over. It grew further 5 years into his rule.
Humayun's condition was also weakened politically, in the sense that when Babur left, he also divided his empire into 4 or 5 different regions to be looked after by 4 or 5 of his sons. So there was no powerful centralized authority in the person of Humayun that he would be able to deploy that vis-a-vis the Afghans. To the extent that when Humayun is actually asking his brothers to come and join in his fight against Sher Shah, several of them were actually not interested in coming.
Sultan Bahadur of Gujarat in the southwest and Sher Khan in the east, who later called himself Sher Shah, posed challenges before his kingdom. Sultan Bahadur was defeated in 1535 after Humayun annexed Gujarat and Malwa, his army taking over forts of Mandu and Champaner, driving Sultan Bahadur down the coast in Diu, where the Portuguese had begun to set their foot in. But it was to be Sher Shah Suri who charted the history as one of the great fighters defeating Mughals.
Sher Shah was an extraordinary person and a ruler with lots of ambition. The major ambition was to drive the Mughals out of the country and re-establish the Afghan rule in India, and that he pursued relentlessly by fighting wars, by forging alliances, and surely he outwitted Humayun politically and militarily, and brought exile upon him so that he had to leave the country and go to Iran.
The context for the rise of Sher Shah was also the fact that Babur was not able to entirely suppress the Afghans altogether. Afghans were still looking for an opportunity for a fight back, and in the leadership of Sher Shah, they got one person through which they could be mobilized and launch a fight back against the Mughals.
Taking advantage of Humayun's preoccupation in Gujarat, Sher Shah Suri consolidated his position in Bengal and Bihar. As Humayun marched eastwards, Sultan Bahadur, taking help from Portuguese, recaptured Gujarat and Malwa, forcing Humayun to recalculate his strategies to strengthen his back.
He's just paying attention on raising his army, extending his dominion, and it is here that at the Battle of Chausa, Humayun's army, Humayun comes to Bihar, enters Bengal and reaches Gaur, and Sher Shah Suri is giving him way. Once he reaches Gaur, Sher Shah Suri blocked their way, and Humayun, and they cut the provision of Mughal army to come back towards Agra. Now, the main, again, the advantage that Sher Shah took was of speed, while Humayun was very slow in his movement.
Sher Shah sensed that the time was ripe for him to strike, because he clearly saw the weakness in the Mughal polity. The nobles were not very committed to fighting against him, and Humayun was himself not able to plan his strategies in a way that could have given Sher Shah a major challenge. So yes, it's quite possible that he sensed victory.
It was Battle of Chaucer in the year 1539 where Sher Shah Suri and Humayun faced each other for the first time. While Sher Shah Suri's army defeated Mughals comprehensively, Humayun managed to survive. He was rescued by a water carrier in his contingent who swam him across the river. The two met again few months later in the Battle of Kannauj, an event which hit the fledgling Mughal Empire the hardest.
Humayun's army was completely defeated. The Mughal Empire founded by Babur was replaced by Afghan ruler of Sur dynasty. It was then Sher Khan assumed the title of Sher Shah Suri. Assuming the rule of Delhi, Suri added several more buildings in Din-i-Panah, primary being Sher Mandal and Nal Darwaza.
The 16th century records onwards would say that he had all the visions of a great empire builder with the kind of social infrastructure that could have been possible. He could have given big plans to connect large parts of the empire through road networks. The modern day Grand Trunk Road, etc. So roads, from Kabul to Bengal, from Agra to Burhanpur, large parts were supposedly to be constructed. Law and order to be established in such a way that criminals are taken care of.
He's credited to have introduced the postal system in India, the dark chowkis, and he has also established a very strong silver currency which is called rupaya, which was the purest coin of the time, because this is the time when Latin American mines have been explored and silver had started flowing in India.
In exile for 15 years, Humayun was reduced to a ruler without a kingdom. Wandering place to place, he moved away to Lahore in search of political shelter. Accounted in Humayun-Nama, penned by his sister Begum Gulbadan, Humayun sent an ambassador to Sher Shah Suri, saying, "I have left for you the whole of Hindustan, leave Lahore, and let Sirhind be the boundary between you and me." To which Sher Shah sent a curt reply, "I have left for you Kabul, you should go there."
It's a very eventful period in Indian history. Sher Shah ruled for a short period of time, but he was able to take a whole range of measures, political, administrative, fiscal, monetary, building construction, other policies, policies of popularizing Hindi as the language of administration, along with Persian. So Sher Shah's rule was, in my opinion, a very, very rich, complex and powerful.
As his struggle to stay relevant in the annals of history began, Humayun was in wilderness. He first fled to Lahore, from there to Sindh, from there to Rajputana, back to Sindh, until he finally went to Persia and took shelter under the court of Shah Temast. It was in those wanderings where he married Hamida Banu Begum, an alliance that proved fruitful not just for him, but for the entire Mughal Empire.
The late 16th century image of the Mughal emperors will be very masculine type, very powerful people. They will have big harems. Women will be coming from all various different places, etc. Whereas in Babur's case, Humayun's case, as I said, Mughal imperial women are very, very important. They are riding horses and camping in tents.
Hamida travelled extensively with the exiled Mughal emperor, even to rough terrains which needed her to be battle-hardened. Two years in exile, they took refuge at Umarkot, ruled by Rajput king Rana Prasad. It was here she gave birth to the future emperor Akbar on 15th October 1542.
In fact, his stay in the court of Shah Temast, since the Safavids were Shias, so probably this Shia connection of Hamida Banu Begum must have helped him. Plus, Babur was already very friendly with the Safavids. He was earlier also was helped by. And then we find that Shah Temast's sister, Sultana Begum also, she used to ride behind Humayun. As a bodyguard or as a protector, and many a times she has, more than Hamida Banu Begum, she has helped Humayun to come to a friendly terms with Shah Temast, since she is the daughter of Shah Temast. So probably Hamida Banu Begum and the Sultana Begum were very friendly. So that was probably because of their Central Asian connection or Persian connection.
With Safavid army on his side, Humayun then set out to regain his lost kingdoms. First of all was Kabul, which was ruled by his half-brother Kamran Mirza, who had been disloyal to him and more loyal to his opponents.
Meanwhile in Delhi, Sher Shah Suri's empire was crumbling. Although it had begun to weaken soon after his death in the year 1545, after his son Islam Shah passed away, the empire began to disintegrate. Now that was an opening seized by Mughals to gain an entry to win back Delhi.
Gathering a vast contingent, especially with aid of Persian allies and local tribesmen, Humayun's Mughal army led by his general Bairam Khan defeated Suri army in the Battle of Sirhind. Month later, on July 23, 1555, after 15 years of hiatus, Mughal Empire was dethroned. As Humayun now commanded generals and administrators capable of quelling trouble, his kingdom was relatively in peace and restful. But his destiny caught up with him. Barely 6 months into the restored rule, Humayun died in a bizarre manner, tumbling down the staircase after his ropes caught up in his foot at this site.
He was sitting on the balcony of the library cum observatory, which is today called Sher Mandal, in Din-i-Panah cum Shergarh, watching the rise of Venus before moving to Agra. Half of his stuff was already gone to Agra. He was making Agra once again the capital of the empire, and he was coming down from the balcony and tripped and fell and died. So it's an irony that a man who thought that his fortunes were dictated by the movement of stars and planets had absolutely no idea what was going to happen to him.
In spite of flaws and shortcomings in his stint as an emperor and tactician, Humayun as a man earned the title Insan-e-Kamil, a perfect man among the Mughals.
Circumstances were not easy, and even though people have, historians have been uncharitable to him and presented him as somebody who was an opium addict and who never really cared about statecraft and administration. I would rather say that he had inherited the Timurid legacy and how the Timurid princes were brought up, how they were trained, in the way they were educated through a whole range of things, from the use of weapon to the use of pen.
Succeeding Humayun, Akbar took Mughal Empire to great heights, a period which is often referred to as a golden era of Mughal Empire. Between all this, Agra assumed a significance of being a powerful capital city. But it was in the middle of 17th century that capital was shifted back to Delhi by Akbar's grandson and Humayun's great-grandson Shah Jahan. In our next episode of Talking History, let's merge ourselves in the city of gold, Shah Jahanabad.